So C labels, and the reason that this has come back up on my radar again is this little jobby here, which was sent to me by one of our Discord members, and we have a small situation there, of course, that it's correctly labeled with the CE, the UKCA marking as well. Yeah. But of course, we have a little number 1 there and a little shield. And we know what that number 1 and shield should mean. It should mean that's a C1 certified drone. And of course, as far as I was aware, I don't know if you'd heard any news, but as far as I was aware, there wasn't even a standards body yet. So
there's still, you cannot, I don't even think you can buy the ASTM standard as a yet. It still has not been ratified.
And in actual fact, and this was the bit because we were chatting so much before the show that I forgot to tell you, but I did reach out to Jonathan Nicholson at the CAA, and he did come back with some confirmation. So thank you for that, Jonathan. I really appreciate it. To confirm that there is still no official body, etc., to formally recognise this yet. So they are jumping the gun, and also any extra permissions to have a C-class marking aren't in effect yet, because of course we are in the transition period. We're in the legacy period. So C labels actually aren't even in effect yet. So even if you do have a C2 drone, that type of thing, you still technically still need to use it as a legacy drone, which I found interesting from the wording of the email. So you'll only be able to use A2 within an A2 class drone as of 1/1/23, basically. So, and he also says he also wanted to point out to the audience, and of course it's worth remembering that the current rules remain in place until those changes next year, but the sub 250 legacy option remains after that period. So we're still going to have that wonderful sub 250 that the EU, the EASA main rules won't be having, sadly. But yeah, so I mean that's a good thing for us, of course. So we're in this situation now where, of course, we have this. I had the interviews with Jonathan at DroneX, and also the follow up when he came on the live stream, but also very kindly answered some Q&As from that interview. And in the interview, it was very much, yes, the standards are out there. So drone operators, drone manufacturers should know what they need to do to produce compliant drones. However, the follow-up was, of course, well, actually, there's no standards body to go and buy that standard from to say, to have your drone tested against, etc. So yeah, it's exactly. So we've kind of had that grey area, and I'm not surprised to see someone like Holy Stone come up with a C marked drone, but I thought it was important to let the audience know that it isn't necessarily what you think it is yet. It's certainly not certified, and in any case, until the date happens, you can't actually use it. But it's a bit of a figgledy one with the C labels at the moment, isn't it?
It is, because the first question I have is, does it comply with what that would be, first of all, based on what we know? Do you know what I mean? Because we know one theory what a C1 would be, and if they've based it on that, then what they're playing a game of is we're going to head for it up front. We know. I think we know it's going to be self-certification, as I understand it. In the UK, at least. In the US, that was very different. Yeah. But in the UK or Europe, it's going to be self-certification. Okay, we know how well that works if we look at the emission scandal. However, that's a different animal altogether.
Yes. But at least, I suppose, with the drone labeling, where it's a lot of it's around weight, then
it should be fairly.
Yeah, I suppose it should be fairly, from the point of view, is it under 900 grams? Yes, okay, you go to C1.
Yes.
And then you've got the or 80 joule things and that type of thing, which of course will take more science to prove it. But that's down to the standards body to dictate. But
I suppose the confusion for this is when this standard comes in, you're going to have products with the standard made after the ratification period, and then products with a standard that technically doesn't exist. Yet it may still comply. There's a simple reality.
Yeah, exactly. And we are going to have a lot of drones that are currently on the marketplace, that are currently in people's hands, like the Mavic 3, that will be, it is under 900 grams. So that thing should be a C1 drone. That's going to be, if you have an A2 CFC and an A2 drone will be fantastic, but a C1 drone, you've only got to read the manual and get your flyer ID, etc., and you're away. And you can then use that thing with minimal distance, separation distance, etc. So it's incredible. But of course, you're going to have to repurchase that drone, because there has been the talk of the retroactive labeling, and hand on heart, I can't see it for consumer sized drones personally. I just can't see that happening personally. It's a cost thing, frankly. I mean, you're going to have to have a drone to go back. And yes, I mean, effectively they could just change the label. But with
in some ways, I don't blame the manufacturer for doing this, because look, how long have we had this sheet showing this now, Sean? Is this 3 years since we've had this proposed regulation? Very early on, we had that document which showed this. And in some ways, I don't blame the manufacturers, because you've got users screaming, when are we going to get the C-label drones? We've been waiting for them. You've got manufacturers going, well, we're not going to do it until it's time and ready and when we're given the thing. And they are sort of left in the middle, because if they want to sell products and use it. So I'm not shocked someone's just gone, well, hold on. We're just going to, as long as they've gone, we're going to comply with what that says today based on what we have, and we're going to run with it. Whilst it is a little underhanded to not say, just to confirm, this rating has not been ratified. Other than that, I don't sort of blame them.
So we are now towards the end of January, and so therefore we have about 11 months left on our legacy period with our legacy drones and that type of thing. And there are people operating commercially that don't have PIF codes and GBCs, that are A2 CFCs and that type of thing, etc. Do you think that we're going to need to see, or rather, I'll reword that. At what point, with no standards available and with no C-rated drones on the market, at what point should they or do they extend the legacy period?
It needs to be done before. It needs to be done within the 3 months of the end, at minimum, because that's 12 weeks. Okay. I've seen this whole mess pan out over the PFCO and the whole thing. And you remember the shambles last time where things were changing on no one, REs as they are now, they didn't even know, and rules were changing at the last minute. And if it does happen, it needs to happen 3 months. I guess 6 months is quite a long time.
It is, and a lot can happen. And of course, it's always easier for people, because of course they can't say the things they know are coming down the pipeline, and we could be a week off C-label announcements. We just don't know.
I don't know why there is the need to force an end date on what we've got, if I'm honest, because look, drones are like cars. They will naturally end.
Yes.
In their life cycle. If you look at, cars, we're in this hybrid revolution right now of the car industry moving to electric, and, internal combustion is going to naturally slow and battery is going to naturally increase. And the same will happen with drones. People are going to naturally replace them. The lifespan of a drone, is it really even 3 years, do you think? Because I don't think it is. So I'm not convinced why it's actually necessary to force an end on this, and rather just let the natural market condition deal with it, because we're talking about people buying new drones every 12 months.
No, indeed.
It's why force users into a position when it'll probably happen naturally in a little over that time anyway.
Everybody wants the newest and freshest thing. When the Mavic 3S and the Air 3 comes out, and the Inspire 3, and also, of course, Inspire, you don't need to worry about C-labels, of course. There is technology has a natural death. It has a natural end zone. So I have always had that feeling as well. I have to say, I have some sympathy for the argument that whatever happens, they just need to end the legacy period. There just needs to be, a line in the sand, and just, it's done. Legacy's over. Moving on. C-labels will be, but as long as they have a clear roadmap where they can show us that actually the standards are out, and we're told that X, Y, and Z will happen, and also, I don't know, some way of doing it. So not a legacy period, but you could almost call it something else. They already call it transitional period technically, but some other form of transitional legacy 2 or something. We had lockdown 2.0 and 3.0, so we have legacy 2.0 as well, and then perhaps have certain criteria there, which is again much closer together, but just gives that bit of extra time.
Hate ratings for historic.
There you go.
You just Joe's.
We could have a classic car rating for drones.
Yeah. H1 job done.
Oh, as long as it keeps my Inspire 1 in the air, I'm happy personally.